Hi guys, welcome to Flash Fact. Today we're going to take a look at the name filter. Essentially, I keep on seeing people who have questions about the names, and essentially people seems to think constantly that there's a bug with the naming system or something like that. They don't seem to realize that there are names that you just cannot use. Obviously, you cannot use already established names like Batman, Superman, or Wonder Woman, or Spider-Man. Although some people will find ways around that by spelling it slightly differently. And also, there are certain names that have been added through the years to the name filter. Essentially, the name filter is a living thing. There are names or words that used to be able to be used years ago that no longer can be used. The best example of that was a name like Spawn. Spawn or Marvel or Avenger, those words used to be able to be used to name characters. So if you look at Wave Docs, you will see various characters like Shadow Spawn, Hell Spawn, Battle Spawn, whatever. You'll see a small army of Spawn characters. But nowadays, if you try to create a character with the name Spawn in it, let's say you try to create the Blue Spawn, even if there's no Blue Spawn on Wave Docs, even if there's no Blue Spawn anywhere in the world, anywhere in the game, anywhere at all, you no longer can use a name that has Spawn in it. And not just Spawn by itself, but even if you put a name in front of Spawn and after Spawn, or even just random numbers or letters in front of Spawn and after Spawn, the name will just not work. It will tell you invalid names. It's not that the name generator is broken. It's not that the game is broken. It's just that the name filter doesn't allow you to use Spawn anymore. The same is true for Marvel. If you look at Wave Docs, you will see a truckload of Marvel characters, a Blue Marvel, Mr. Marvel, the Marvel. But nowadays, you no longer can use Marvel naming your character. Again, some people will find clever ways to bypass that. Essentially, they will replace the L at the end with, let's say, a capital I. But other than pulling a cute trick like that, you no longer can use a word like Marvel when you're naming your character. The same with Avenger. I know you'll look at Wave Docs again, and you'll see that there's the Blue Avenger, the Red Avenger, the Orange Avenger. But if you try to create the Fuchsia Avenger, even if the name doesn't exist at all, you won't be able to use it. And again, it's not because the naming is broken. It's not because there's some sort of mysterious bug. It's simply the name filter that doesn't allow those names anymore. Also, you can create a character, decide, okay, I don't like my character. You can delete it, create a new character, and use that name right away. So let's say I create the character Mr. Phantom. I create Mr. Phantom. I decide that, holy crap, I hate the boots I gave Mr. Phantom. Well, I can delete it, create a new character with much better boots, and name it Mr. Phantom, and I can do that right away, and it will work. The only reason why it wouldn't work is if during the 2 minutes I took to create my new Mr. Phantom, maybe someone else came in and decided to create a Mr. Phantom at that same time. And it may seem like it's not likely to happen, but remember, there's like over 20 million characters, and there's millions of players playing DC Universe Online and creating and deleting characters all the time. So odds are, as you're creating your character, there's like 5 million other people creating characters also, and the odds of one of those using the original name you just thought of, they're much better than you think. So and someone thought that there was a bug because essentially he tried to create a character, deleted his character, tried to recreate it with the same name, and it didn't work. It told him that the name was already taken. And when he was trying to add the character with that name to his friend list, it told him that the character was logged out. And all of that within like the span of like 2 minutes. Well, quite simply, someone, while he was creating his character, someone also created a character, took the name you wanted, and then logged out. There are people who do that, who will just create characters that they will keep parked on the Brainiac ship. because there are people who are farming for names. Why would they do that? There's a few reasons. First, what they will do sometimes is that they'll create a character, they'll find a name they like, and then they'll log out, and then they'll try to sell that name to someone else or trade that name to someone else. Or they could be keeping that name for the future. Like personally, I'm trying to come up with a character that has a name kind of like Namor the Submariner because there's a water power coming up. So let's say tonight I create Namor the Submariner. I could decide to keep him parked on the Brainiac ship until the water power comes out, which could be a few weeks, a few months. We have no idea when the power is coming out. So that character could remain parked on the Brainiac ship for a bit until I finally decide to use that name. Also, if you look on the Xbox section of the forums, you will see there's already people who have 20, 30, 40 names that are trying to trade or sell to other people. There's also a whole section on the forums where people are trading things. Essentially, it's called the Metropolis Exchange, and people are trading all kinds of things in there. They're trading auras, they're trading base items, and they're trading names. So if somehow you're looking for a very specific name, you can go there, and if you're lucky, you'll find the person who has that name, and you'll be able to do some sort of trade with that person. Personally, I was hoping to get the name The Phantom, but it never happened. So I was sad. I had to settle for the French version, which is Le Fantôme. So that's another reason why people would have a name with a character, because sometimes people will look at let's say they try to create again Mr. Phantom, and they'll look at wave docs and they'll see that Mr. Phantom is level 1, combat rating 0, and he's on the Brainiac ship, and he's been there for like 3 months. Well, obviously it's a character that is only parked there, that either the person has no intention of using, or maybe he's waiting for some time in the future to create a character with that name. And there's also the distinction between the US server and the European servers. On the European servers, you can use special characters. So it's a lot easier to bypass the name filter for those people, for people in Europe. So in Europe, if somehow you have access to special characters, odds are you probably can create a Batman character if you're clever enough, or a Superman named character, or a Spawn named character. So if you can use special characters, well, yeah, obviously you're going to be able to find ways to bypass the name filter. There's also ways in the US that we can do that. Essentially, a simple trick is to use a small I, a small L instead of a capital I, and things like that. But there's a few tricks you can find at some point to bypass a bit the name filter. But at the end of the day, if you try to create a character and the name doesn't work, it's quite simply that it's just the name filter that doesn't allow you to create that name. And again, if you look on Wave Docs and you see that already characters are using that name or that word, it's because at some point in time you could use the word, but at some point the name filter was changed and more words were added to it, and you no longer can use that name. It's very important to understand, because there's a lot of people who will scream that there's a bug in the naming system when it's just that the name filter. The name filter is like a living, breathing entity. It evolves over time. It changes as time changes. So the more they add words, new words to the name filter, the harder it is to create a name, and even more, the harder it is to create a good name. So again, if you try to create a character and it says name invalid, quite simply, the name filter just doesn't want to let it through. And if you delete your character, try to create a new one, and it says name taken, well, during the few minutes you took to create your character, someone else created the same character, or at least a character with the same name. Again, there's millions of people playing this universe online, so there's at the very least a few 100,000 or a few thousand people creating characters all the time. So odds are your original name that you had in mind, someone else thought of that too and created that character with that name. And again, be mindful that there are people who do nothing but hoard names. People already on the Xbox server, on the Xbox section on the forums, you have people with 30, 40, 50 names that are trying to trade and sell. So again, be mindful that a lot of people are hoarding names. So finding names is pretty difficult because of all the people who already are using those names. And also it's even more difficult thanks to the name filter, which doesn't allow every name to be used. So I hope you guys will realize that when you hit a wall with naming a character, it's not a mysterious bug. It's not a secret bug that's preventing you from doing that. It's quite simply the name filter that's doing that, or someone else is using that name. So that's it for Flashlight for today, guys. So thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.